It was Christmas Eve. The streets outside glowed with fairy lights, every window lit with warmth, laughter, music, family. But inside Madison Carr's tiny apartment, there was only silence, and a microwave dinner spinning slowly in the dim kitchen light. No phone call, no text, not even a forwarded meme from her mom. Her inbox, though, wasn't empty. There it was, a single email. Subject line, holiday contribution request. Attached was a clean, professional PDF. She clicked it, thinking maybe, just maybe, it was a late invite. But what stared back at her was anything but joy. Total $22,149. And in bold red under the payment line, paid on behalf by Madison Carr. She didn't laugh. She didn't cry. She just sat there, still, like her whole body had short-circuited. Because this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a joke. This was her family sending her a bill for the Lexus they bought her sister on Christmas. Madison's mind drifted back to a childhood painted in shades of coldness. From the very beginning, she wasn't the kind of daughter who needed coddling or hugs. She was labeled too strong, too independent, too much. Her parents rarely showed affection, not because they didn't care, but because they thought she didn't need it. Madison is tough, her mother would say, brushing off her tears. She doesn't need anyone's sympathy. Birthdays came and went with little fanfare. No cake, no candles, no songs sung just for her. Only quiet nods and a shrug. She was the child who carried her own burdens, the strong one who never asked for help, the invisible daughter who was expected to survive on her own. Looking back, the cold shoulders and silent dinners weren't cruelty. They were indifference wrapped in misguided love. A love that said, "You're strong, you don't need us." But Madison learned the hard way. Being strong doesn't mean being invisible. It started with a phone call. One that sounded sweet, but carried a hidden sting. Madison's mother's voice was soft, almost rehearsed. "Sweetheart, Emily's turning 26 soon, and we want to surprise her with her dream car." A pause. "It's only fair, you know. She's had such a hard year." Madison paused too. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her eyes fixed on the phone. She felt a familiar ache, an old wound opening. She looked up and replied calmly, "I don't need anything, Mom. You know that. I'm the strong one." There it was, the line that changed everything, a sentence that justified neglect and built walls. Because in their eyes, being strong meant being invisible. Being strong meant you didn't deserve supports or love. That call wasn't a request. It was a verdict. Madison hung up shaking, knowing deep down she was done asking for their care. The email hit Madison's inbox like a slap in the face. Attached was a PDF file, a cold clinical document with one devastating line, paid on behalf by Madison Carr. Her eyes locked on those words. Time seemed to slow. Her breath caught in her throat. She sat frozen. The betrayal was too raw, too real. There were no excuses left. This wasn't just neglect anymore. This was exploitation. Her own family had used her name without permission to buy a luxury car for her sister. Madison didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there stunned as the weight of their cruelty pressed down harder than ever before. Madison's fingers trembled as she dialed her father's number. When he picked up, his laughter was cold and dismissive. "Why bother?" he scoffed. "You don't have a husband, no kids. What's the point of your money?" He paused, then added with cruel finality, "At least help someone who's actually building a real life." Madison felt a punch to the gut. The man who was supposed to protect her was mocking her, reducing her existence to nothing but a wallet. She swallowed the lump in her throat. This wasn't just indifference anymore. It was outright cruelty. But Madison refused to break. Instead, she clenched her jaw, ready to fight back harder than ever. Madison realized something devastating in that moment. She wasn't seen as a daughter. Not really. She was a resource, a convenient bank account to be tapped whenever it suited them. Her feelings, her needs, her existence, it all faded into the background. What mattered was the money she could provide. This invisible slap cut deeper than any argument, any harsh word. It was the silent message repeated for years. You're strong. You don't need us. You owe us. Madison felt the weight of that truth suffocating her. But beneath the pain, something fierce began to burn. She was done being invisible. Done being taken for granted. Madison didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't plead for their understanding. Instead, she closed the distance between pain and power. She opened her laptop. Her fingers moved swiftly, fueled by a storm of anger and clarity. She drafted emails, cold, precise, and unyielding, addressed to the Lexus dealership and the IRS. Her message was clear. This is fraud. You have been complicit. Investigate immediately. She attached proof, the forged documents, the text messages from her mother, the detailed invoice. For the first time, Madison wasn't the victim, silently bearing injustice. She was the storm raging back. Madison knew she needed more than just emails. She picked up her phone and called a lawyer she had researched late into the night. A professional who could turn her pain into power, someone who could hold her family accountable. She gathered every piece of evidence she had, the forged loan agreement with her signature, the text messages from her mother pleading for silence, her bank statements showing unauthorized charges. One by one, the puzzle pieces came together, a damning picture of betrayal, deception, and fraud. Madison sent everything to her lawyer. Her hands were steady, her resolve unwavering. This was no longer just a family dispute. It was a battle for justice, and Madison was ready to fight. Within days, Madison received a response from the Lexus dealership. Their tone was urgent, almost frantic. They confirmed what she had feared all along. The loan was fraudulent. Her signature had been forged. The dealership explained that the vehicle's registration and insurance were immediately frozen. The sleek Lexus that once symbolized a dream gift had become a legal nightmare, parked useless and untouchable. For the first time, Madison sensed the power of her actions. Her family's deception was unraveling, and the consequences were beginning to take hold. Madison's phone exploded with calls and texts. 19 calls from her mother, 11 from her father, 8 from Emily. They came like a tidal wave, relentless and furious. "Are you crazy?" her mother screamed through texts. "You're ungrateful," her father roared in voicemails. "You ruined Emily's birthday," they all accused. Madison saw the messages pile up, but she didn't respond. Instead, she did something simple yet profound. She made herself a cup of coffee. Slowly, deliberately. And as the rich aroma filled her tiny apartment, she watched silently as the world her family built began to crumble. Their chaos was no longer hers to fix. Madison's lawyer didn't mince words. "This is a slam-dunk fraud case," she said with confidence. The forged signature, the unauthorized loan, everything pointed clearly to criminal deception. Without hesitation, the legal wheels started turning. The lawsuit was filed within the week. Madison felt a strange mix of relief and determination. Her fight was no longer just personal. It was now in the hands of justice. She wasn't just defending herself. She was holding her family accountable for the first time. The sleek Lexus, once a symbol of luxury and celebration, now sat lifeless in the family driveway. Frozen by legal orders, the car couldn't be registered. It couldn't be insured. It couldn't be driven. What was meant to be a dream gift had become a worthless paperweight, an emblem of deception and consequences. Madison imagined the frustration building inside Emily, the jealousy, the helplessness. But more than anything, Madison felt the bitter satisfaction that justice was finally catching up. As Madison sifted through old emails and documents to build her case, she stumbled upon a shocking discovery. There, buried and forgotten threads, were messages between her parents discussing how to shift Emily's tuition and rent payments onto Madison's accounts. Years of bills and charges she had quietly been shouldering, believing they were her own. The weight of betrayal crashed down all at once. This pain wasn't new. It had been there all along. She just hadn't dared to look it in the eye. Madison sat back, breath shallow, heart heavy. Her family hadn't just stolen her present, they'd been stealing pieces of her life for years. The courtroom was tense, heavy with unspoken truths. Madison's parents sat side by side, their faces streaked with tears, some real, some rehearsed. Emily played the perfect victim, her eyes wide and innocent. But Madison came prepared. She had receipts, and not just metaphorical ones. Bank statements, emails, forged contracts, all laid bare in front of the judge. The evidence painted a clear picture, a family drowning in lies, guilty of betrayal, fraud, and manipulation. As the judge flipped through the documents, the weight of Madison's truth filled the room. No amount of crocodile tears could erase the facts. Madison sat tall, unwavering. She wasn't just fighting for justice, she was fighting for her dignity. The judge's voice cut through the courtroom, firm and unwavering. She signed a loan agreement she never saw. The forged signature is undeniable. For 4 years, her name was used to claim tax benefits illegally, and the money she earned was quietly funneled to support her younger sister's lifestyle. Madison's family had twisted trust into betrayal. They had exploited her identity, her finances, and her sense of loyalty. The truth was undeniable and damning. Their scheme had fed one daughter at the expense of another, and the scales of justice were about to tip. The courtroom fell silent as the judge delivered the verdict. Madison's parents were ordered to pay $42,000 in damages, plus an additional $9,000 in compensation. Emily was banned from financing any vehicle purchases for 5 years, and the family's bank accounts were frozen pending further investigation. Madison sat still. Her heart pounded, but she did not smile. For the first time in her life, she simply breathed, a slow, steady breath of relief and release. Victory wasn't about celebration. It was about reclaiming her life. Madison didn't buy the house next door out of spite. She didn't want to watch her family fall apart. She wanted to take back control of her own life. That small house, just a few steps from her parents' home, became her sanctuary, a symbol of strength and renewal. No longer invisible, no longer powerless. It was a quiet declaration. I am here. I am in charge. I am free. This wasn't revenge. It was Madison reclaiming her future. From her balcony, Madison watched quietly. Boxes piled high, movers carrying belongings. Her parents' house was no longer a home, but a place of defeat and shame. She sipped her coffee slowly, the morning light warm on her skin. The sound of the closing door echoed like a final chapter closing. No anger filled her heart, only a quiet strength. She wasn't celebrating their fall, she was witnessing her own liberation. This was the price of betrayal, and she was finally free. For the first time, Madison hosted her own Christmas. No family drama, no cold silences, just laughter filling the room. Friends, co-workers, and neighbors, all chosen family. No one there knew the battles she had fought, the storms she had weathered in silence. That night wasn't about tradition, it was about healing. Madison realized something profound. Freedom isn't about breaking others down. It's about finally stopping the destruction of yourself. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was truly alive. Weeks after the court verdict, Madison received a handwritten letter. No apology, no understanding, just cold words coded in false forgiveness. Family means forgiveness, but you have always been too proud. The letter was filled with blame, accusing Madison of tearing the family apart. But there was no hint of regret, only a demand for her to bow to their version of family. Madison held the letter quietly in her hands, feeling the weight of unresolved wounds. Madison stepped into her backyard, the letter heavy in her hand. Without hesitation, she tossed it into the fire pit. Flames flickered, devouring the paper, taking with it the weight of blame and false forgiveness. Then, with calm resolve, she sat down and wrote a new letter, not to her family, but to herself. I am not cold. I was just frozen for too long. This was her declaration of freedom, a promise to live on her own terms, no longer chained by their silence or judgment. The fire burned bright that night, a symbol of healing, of rebirth, and of finally being alive. They didn't lose everything. I lost, but I'm the one who survived. Madison's voice was steady, clear, carrying the weight of scars and the power of healing. She didn't need apologies. She didn't need their approval. All she needed was to live, truly live, on her own terms. This was her freedom, not revenge, not bitterness, but life, and that was more than enough. This story teaches us a powerful truth. Strength is not about being invisible or carrying all the burdens alone. True strength lies in knowing your worth, setting boundaries, and standing up for yourself, even when it means facing those closest to you. Never allow anyone, even family, to diminish your value or exploit your kindness. Freedom comes when you stop trying to fix everyone else's world and start rebuilding your own. Remember, self-respect and courage are the foundation of a life truly lived. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to Pieces of Soul for more powerful real-life stories that inspire and uplift. Hit the like button if you believe in standing up for yourself, and share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from? Join our community. Let's grow stronger together.